Okay, wonderful. So I have the privilege tonight of speaking on the sacraments. And I would like to begin with a story. The story is that there was a highly geared lawyer who handled a case for a very wealthy friend. And after the successful outcome of the case for his wealthy friend, the wealthy friend called on the lawyer and handed him a handsome Moroccan leather wallet in gratitude. The lawyer looked at the wallet, a little bit puzzled, and then he handed it back to his friend and snapped acidly, my fee for that is $500. This could never compensate me for my fee. The friend took the wallet back with a smile, opened it up, took out the $1,000 bill that was in it, put a $500 bill in it, and gave it back to the lawyer. So there was a little bit of a problem for the lawyer, wasn't it? He didn't realize that the wallet was not just a wallet, was it? The wallet was actually a means of conveying something else. What was it a means of conveying? Money, right? The point was not just the wallet. The wallet was simply the vehicle, the means to convey something else, and the something else was the money. And the lawyer failed to open it up and see what was inside. He only looked at what was obvious. He didn't look at what wasn't obvious. So this is a little bit something to do with what we want to talk about tonight. Because in the Catholic Church, we have a name for something called the wallet, which is a means not of money. Sorry. Okay. You thought we were becoming Catholic so you could, earn more money. No. So the wallet in the Catholic Church is a means of conveying grace. Who can tell me, what do we call that in the Catholic Church? What's a means of conveying grace? Oh, come on, you got to be a little bit more active than that tonight. Okay, this is, I ask questions and you answer. If not, I'm going to point to people. Okay? So in the church, we have something that's a means of conveying grace. What is it? Exactly, it's the sacraments. The sacraments are what we call a means of conveying grace. So if tonight we're going to look at the sacraments, and the sacraments are a means of conveying grace, then it would be pretty important to ask, what is grace? So don't say grace is the name of my sister, okay? That's not the answer I want. Okay, who can tell me what is grace? We use it a lot. After all, I hope that's why a lot of you are here. It's because you hope that this process of being baptized or confirmed or being fully initiated in the church is going to be a means of grace. So what's grace?
Love of God.
Very good. Grace is God's divine life, which is his love. That's what grace is. It's God's divine life. It's the gift of his very self. How many of you would like more of God? Okay, good. Then we're all in the right place, because I would as well. That's what grace is. Grace means we receive more of the life and the love of God. So the Catechism, 1997, says this. Would you read this for me, please? Out loud.
Grace is participation in the life of God.
That's what grace is how we participate in God's own very life. Pope John Paul II, as you know from last time, who happens to be my favorite theologian, describes grace this way. He says, grace is God's self-communication of his very divinity. I love that definition of grace. It's God giving of himself to us his very divinity. Again, another way of saying God gives his very life to us. I don't know if you've ever thought about it before, but God's greatest desire is to give himself to you. That's why he's called you here personally. I hope you've experienced it as a call, that you weren't kind of just driving by the church one time and thought, oh, well, maybe I should just kind of check it out. Okay, not bad, if that's why you're here. But I think for most people, they experience the RCIA process as a response to a call. Something's moving inside of them. And so they want to respond to that. That's God's call to you, because his greatest desire is to give himself to you. Now, remember last time I said we have different images of God? And one of those images of God is sometimes we think of him as a policeman waiting to zap you. God's greatest desire is not to zap you. Well, I guess we could say in a way it is, but it's to zap you with his grace. Right? It's to zap you with his divine life. So really, the way I like to look at it is the beloved always wants to give himself to his beloved. God wants to give himself to you. Why? Because he's a lover. And he loves you. And the greatest desire of a lover is to give himself to his beloved. And that means every single one of you is his beloved. That's why you're here. Not because you're afraid you'll go to hell. If that's why you're here, okay, better than nothing. But I hope that through the process, you'll discover the real reason why you're here is because God is your beloved. And he wants to give himself to you. Who can tell me, what's John 3:16 say? Any good Protestants here?
He gave his only begotten Son. Whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life.
Whoa, that was pretty good. So John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him would not perish, but would have everlasting life. Guess what's another name for everlasting life? Grace. God's divine life. He wants to give himself to you so that you can have grace, his divine life. Why? Why not just say, oh, thanks, God. I can do it on my own. My guess is that some of you have tried that. And that's why you're here, huh? Because you realize it doesn't work to try to do it on your own. So why do we need this grace? It's to make you holy. That's the purpose of God pouring his life into you. He wants to make you holy so that you can be more like God. You see, holy is the word, the adjective that we use to describe God. Now, if you were going to describe me, you might describe me as thin, athletic, passionate, enthusiastic. If we're going to describe God, the first word that should come to mind is holy. That's the word that describes who God is. When we say holy, we mean someone or something that's like God. And we need this grace, this divine life, so we can live in union with him. Do you remember last time? What's my favorite word? Union, right? That's why we need grace. So we can live in union with God because he's our beloved. And the greatest desire of the beloved is to give himself to his or her beloved. And if God is holy, we need to be holy so that we can live in union with God. So who did I pull my knife on last time? That's who I thought it was. You remember this knife? Oh, you'd rather not, huh? What was the purpose of this knife? Yeah, exactly, to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? And we saw last time that I can use this knife either according to its purpose, to make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or we saw that I could use this knife contrary to its purpose. Notice he didn't walk up here again and volunteer for that, huh? So we saw last time that what the purpose of a knife is. But we also looked at what's the purpose of the body. Who remembers the purpose of the body? Here it is, right, to be a gift. The purpose of the body is to be a gift by revealing God. Because last time we said theology of the body means? Okay, let's try again. The answer is the body reveals God. Theology of the body means?
Body reveals God.
Exactly. Theology of the body means the body reveals God by becoming a gift. And so last time we summarized everything that we looked at, how we image God, which is Genesis 1:27, through those hand motions that we did. Okay, so if you'd be so kind as to put down your pens. Here we go, shake out your hands. Right? We image God by being one nature, embodied in two ways, for the purpose of union and communion through a sincere and fruitful gift of self. Okay, let's do it one more time, especially for those who weren't here last time. Okay, we're made from one nature. What's the one nature? Who remembers? What kind of nature are we made from? Human nature, exactly. Embodied in two ways. What are the two ways?
Man and a woman.
Male and female. Why male and female? For the purpose of union and communion. How? Through a sincere and fruitful gift of self. Fabulous. Did any of you try those hand motions on anyone in the last couple weeks? No one? Okay. Well, maybe something will come your way in the next couple weeks that you can explain to someone how we're made in God's image and likeness by being one nature embodied in two ways for the purpose of union and communion through a sincere and fruitful gift of self. What helps us live this gift of self? If that's the way we reveal God through our bodies, then what helps us live this gift of self? And the answer is grace. God's divine life within us is what empowers and frees us and heals us and encourages us and nurtures us in order to live this gift of self. So God's divine life is really so important for us. But let me ask you, is our life today like it was in the beginning? Do we live the way Adam and Eve lived? Let me try that again. Do we live the way Adam and Eve lived? No, we don't. Because something happened between the beginning and today, and what was it? Yes, exactly. It was the fall. It was original sin. You know, when I ask teenagers that, you know what they have started answering in the last couple of years? What happened between the beginning and today that messed everything up? They say, technology. Isn't that interesting? That's the first thing that comes to their mind. Interesting. Boy, do we have a lot of work to do, huh? Because it's original sin that messed everything up. Okay, so I brought with me tonight my favorite visual aid to describe original sin. So can anyone tell me what this is? Yeah, it's an egg separator. What do you do with an egg separator? It separates eggs. That's pretty smart, right? So if I wanted to use this egg separator, I would crack an egg. I'd put the egg in here, and what would happen? Right, the yolk would stay here, and what would the white do?
Go through.
Right, it would filter through. Right, the whole purpose of an egg separator is to separate the yolk from the white. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but Satan has a plan for your life. God has a plan for your life. His plan is that he wants to give himself to you so you can live in union and communion with him. Guess what Satan's plan is for your life? It's right here. Separation. He wants to separate you from God so that you will not have the divine life within you, so you can't live in union and communion with God. That's one reason why it's so great that you're here. Because you know what? There are a lot of people walking around who have no idea, first of all, that God has a plan for their life. And they also have no idea that Satan is very real and that he has a plan for their life as well. So sin separates us from what I like to call Go New York. Do we have any New York fans here? Oh, okay. Go New York. So sin separates us from, what do you think the G stands for? That would be a good guess, but it's God. So sin separates us from God. What do you think the O stands for? Others, exactly. So sin, its purpose, Satan wants to separate us from others. What do you think the O stands for? I'm sorry, the N stands for. That's a little harder. I heard it. Nature, right? Us and the world around us. We're meant to live in union and communion with the world around us. You know, Go Green is not just for the green people. Go Green is for all of us. We're meant to live in union and communion with nature. And also, sin separates us from, what do you think the Y stands for? Yourself. Because remember, we saw last time, to be a human person means to have two dimensions. Who remembers? What are the two dimensions? It's why Adam was alone. Exactly. We're made of body and soul, or body and spirit. So Satan's plan is to rupture your relationship with God, your relationship with others, your relationship with nature, the world around you, and within yourself between body and spirit. That's his plan. Can we fight against that plan? You better believe it. That's why we're all here. And that's why we're given the sacraments. All of what we're talking about is what I like to call the Great Divide. Has anyone here been to the Grand Canyon? Yeah, I love asking that question in Phoenix. Okay, if you haven't been to the Grand Canyon, have you at least seen a picture of the Grand Canyon? Okay, good. So I want you to imagine for a moment the Grand Canyon, and over here is the North Rim. We could say that's your body. And over here, way over here, that's the South Rim. That's your spirit. How far apart are they? They're really far apart, aren't they? Who's been there? Have you seen it? They're really far apart. Can you bring the two sides together on your own? It's impossible, isn't it? You see, that's our state after sin. Your body is on one side, and your soul is on the other side. And we are born into the Great Divide. Right within us, we are separated. So the sacraments are given to us because the sacraments help us live union and communion. They give us God's divine life. Why? Because they can convey grace to us. It's the way God set it up. And by conveying grace to us, it helps us overcome the ruptures of Go New York. It helps us overcome this. It helps us overcome and resist Satan's plan for our lives. And it does that by making us holy. Because if holy is who God is, and God gives us his very divine life through grace, then the purpose of grace is to make us holy. Do you know someone who's holy? Do you? Isn't it impressive when you meet someone who's really living a life of holiness? It's attractive. You realize they have something that you want. That's what the sacraments can do for us. That's what being a Catholic can do for us. Give us God's divine life within us to make us holy. So when you're baptized, do magically all the ruptures go away? Gosh, it'd be so nice if they did, wouldn't it? But actually what happens is it puts the process into process. That's what happens when you're baptized. It puts the process into process of overcoming the ruptures of Go New York. This is why as Catholics we baptize babies. Because we don't want to wait till they're 16, 18, 25, 35 to baptize them. A lot of other Christian traditions wait. Maybe you've wondered, why do Catholics baptize babies? Some of you, who's going to be baptized for the first time at the Easter Vigil? Fabulous! You've had to wait a long time. And in the meantime, those ruptures have been able to exist within you. But we believe as Catholics, we baptize babies because in baptism, this process of overcoming the ruptures begins. So it can already be put into motion. So that means it's time for a catechism quiz. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun. Who can tell me a formal definition of a sacrament? Okay, let me give you a little help. Who can fill in these blanks? It's an outward, good sign instituted by who?
Christ.
By Christ that gives?
Grace.
Exactly. So the formal definition of a sacrament is an outward sign instituted by Christ that gives grace. But what I'd like to work from tonight is my informal definition of a sacrament, which is a visible sign of an invisible reality that conveys grace. A little bit easier. A sacrament is a visible sign. It's something you can see. It's something that's tangible. Did you hear in the gospel today? Jesus said, but blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. You see, we are sense-oriented people. He didn't say, blessed are your minds because they think. Okay, there's another scripture verse, Romans 12. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. That's really important. But Jesus here is highlighting the fact that we are a sense-oriented people. And so all sacraments have something that's sensible. It's a visible sign of an invisible reality, of something we can't see that conveys to us grace. And I'm sorry, I have a really bad memory. What's grace? Yes, God's divine life, whose purpose is to make us holy. Okay, so who took a shower this morning? Oh, thank you so very much.